All right, well, welcome everybody to Earth Nouveau. Today we have Chris Jacobs here with us as a special guest. Um, Chris has a lot of special talents. He's a gifted psychic, intuitive, channeler, healer, and he makes special protection tools and clearing tools for your house. So uh, several of us have had sessions with Chris where he really impressed us and helped us along the way. And so we wanted to invite him back. I think the last time you were on was maybe October, November of last year, and we had a fascinating chat. So wanted to invite you back and see what's come up for you over the last year. I know you had a big move too, didn't you? This last year.
Hmm.
A
Yep.
lot of things shifting this year, so just wanted to get some perspective from you on what you see going on and what's been happening with you and whatever else comes up today.
All right. Yeah. Good for having me. Thank you for having me on again, ladies. Since March of this year, roughly around March of this year, I moved from Prescott Valley, Arizona, to Virginia Beach, Virginia, and this is where Joanna's family's from, out this way. And this actually helped, being near the ocean now helps doing what I do immensely. Even though I still get a lot of the AI yammering, it's hard to get away from that. The voice to skull, getting practically, you have to practically stand in the ocean to get rid of that. But being near the water, a lot of the negative entities and such that Arizona was just on an energetic level, was just, there was a severe rub there for myself and Joanna and my family. And when we got away from there, we noticed some things improve. There's other things that have shifted. We've noticed other things to get rid of, other items to get rid of that we've had. That journey never seems to end. That's more of a continuous audit that we're having to conduct on our own energies and our own person and our own things, what we really need, what we need to keep, what we need to get rid of. And that applies to the energies too. And leaving kind of Arizona in the dust, no pun intended, was what we needed to do, because we were picking up that uh, energetically it just wasn't our thing anymore. And I came to find out, it came to pass that one of the main reasons that I was there to begin with was to rectify some past life junk that had accrued from the Arizona, that part of Arizona. I came to find out that I was. This is also familial as well. This is how you get rid of family lineage junk as well, because it came to pass that there was this man by the name of Nelson Miles. He's famously a military commander in the old Indian Wars time frame, and I found out that that was a past life of mine that walked the same steps that I was walking there. And he was the one that famously captured Geronimo. So I came to find out it was a karmic cycle I had to bring to a close. And I took a look at his picture, and he looked very much like my father. So I was like, okay, there's obviously a familial link as well here. And there was too much of a family resemblance to deny what family tree he was from. So I knew that's one of the main reasons I was there, to completely close out an old cycle over the 6 years that I was in Arizona, and why I had so much trouble there beforehand. When I went to college, there was a lot of things wouldn't go right. I was constantly like getting pulled over by the cops, or I got robbed while I was there. Things just kept happening, and it was a cycle coming to a close until I realized what the cycle was. Then when that happened, that's when we got the cue. It's like, okay, we're done here. And then we moved back out this way. And I mean, that's not the only reason, but that was a fairly good sizable reason. And since being out here, we've had to reestablish connections, things of that nature, but we've noticed things opened up in other areas energetically while we've been out here near the ocean. We're more water people. Joanna never really liked the deserts completely. She told me after a while, she goes, "No, that was your thing." It was never. She said it was like a litter box. She didn't want to be in a desert. It's like, so I was like, I said, well, yeah, I love the Southwest, love the vibe, all that other. But yeah, I'm more at home near water. in this lifetime. So yeah, we have been since the beginning of the year. I've noticed that a lot has happened energetically. For myself in particular, when I got into a clear energy, I noticed other things that I didn't need, both physically and energetically. Um, Traits, familiarly, that's another thing. Also, items, also purpose for what we do, also began to branch out into other areas as well. We In order to get our messages out there and everything, we established a website subscription. We established a merch, all this other stuff. And I've been working on orgone pieces more. I got the workshop going again. It took me a while to be able to get it going after the move because it was a pain in the butt, but like moves are. But this, yeah, energetically, it's just easier here for me. Granted, there were other blockages that I didn't know that existed until I came into a cleaner energetic environment. And I thought, we were in a relatively okay place. This was in Prescott Valley last time you ladies spoke to me, but going away from an energy that you were in into another place, you then begin to notice going, hey, I was running on fumes over here. Even well, I had one arm tied behind my back over here. So out here, it's cleaner. I have more access to supplies. I have more access to people, and we can go to the beaches whenever we want. And instead of having to make a vacation for it, like we did before, and then she's closer to family, and my family's out here now too. We all got the hell out of Dodge at the same time, so uh, it's been very very interesting. And I've noticed, especially around Halloween, which was yesterday, there was a lot of energies kicked up that built up towards through the Samhain time frame, like it does every year. But this one was especially it was harsh in some areas and calming in other ones. It's like it was a mixed bag. And for myself, if I had not cleared some of the previous stuff, I knew there was some things that I had to get done before Halloween or the Samhain time started. When that came to pass, when some of those energies began to open, it was this time of year was far less harsh to me than it was in years past. It's because it's bumping up against things that it rapidly wants to correct or show you and everything, and it's very very energetic. And I noticed Halloween is a far more energetic time than even the solstice at the end of the year. People always say summer and winter. They don't have anything on Halloween. Both of them combined don't have anything on Halloween. So last night the energies were pretty okay, but the reason it was smoother than last year, I was in a better energetic place and I had gotten rid of the things that I needed to, and it didn't churn up as much. But you could see around you what it was doing to other people because they hadn't gone through their closet yet. So it was it's pretty interesting. When you get to a certain stage, you also notice that you don't have to do certain things as much as you did before. Like you hear me talk about revocations, for instance. I noticed I didn't have to do that as much. I didn't have to do certain things as much because I'd gotten to a particular plateau where I could just literally use intention, and it it came to pass. I mean, that's normally how it goes. I still use the Dreamtime revocation that I do. I still do certain ones, but there's just ones that when I got to a certain place, it didn't apply to me anymore. And so it helps other people get to that stage too. But I'm far from where sometimes where I need to be, or it seems that way. But it seems that way because you've hit a milestone, and it feels like if you've held on to something a long time, it feels like you're parting with a long lost family member or something. But I've always say if you're extremely attached to something, that means you have to do the opposite in part with it. And when I started following that code of conduct, basically, I noticed it changed volumes for the energy. And I noticed when I got up against something that I had a hard time like parting with, I looked at it and went from a not just a logistical point of view, but familial and even sentimental point of view, what is served by this? And then I ultimately ended up having to part with it in the end. and me holding on to something just dragged it out. So uh, that's what it ended up as. So that's what I've had to go through since we arrived here. It just sped up from where I was, like a cork popped in a wine bottle, and it just went. And when you get past that, like we've had some abundance issues, like sessions have dipped a bit, and then we've had the merch trying to get that going. But I did notice once you get through over some of these energetic humps, it starts to pick back up again. Or if you have maybe an entanglement that's drawing in entities or something like that, when you cut that, it starts to self-correct after a while. Like it may take even a couple months to notice the change, but it seems to be noticeable after a couple or a few months pass. Sometimes it's immediate, sometimes it takes a while, but depends on what it was and what it was holding back. So that seems to be a rule of thumb. If something isn't working, either you weren't supposed to do it, or you're entangled with something, or something is blocking you. It's one of those three choices right there. And if you've taken care of the oppressive side, then maybe something needs to take a different turn and go in a slightly different direction, because you have to switch track it a little bit. And so that's kind of what this move did for ourselves ultimately. And when you think, like what Joanna says to me, when you think you're at the pinnacle of some kind of knowledge or information, you're only scratching the surface of it. And we're always evolving our information. We've gone back through our old lifting shows, and we're going back to the older stuff and the stuff that really holds true, where we're reposting it. And we are rehashing and regoing through some of the material we know is still absolutely true. And we're weeding out, like, say, if a long time ago I brought through a being that we found out wasn't on the up and up, or if maybe some information didn't hold, or if a particular being didn't say everything surrounding a subject, we did a fresh channeling for that, and we put new bumpers on the ends of the episodes, and we've republished them. So this is where we're at. We also have 4 brandings now. We have the lifting, which is the overarching company. We have Galactic Interstellar Council. We have Conspiracy Sector, that you see me do with my friend Aubrey all the time on our YouTube. We just put a Halloween one out, and also the World of Sasquatch. So we opened one up for the forest people too. So at their request, we opened up a branding for them as well. They had some major complaints and grievances about how they were being portrayed in places, like anybody would. They said some people even were making offensive things about them, and they said, we'll allow you to show this, just do this, in a nice way, and we've done nothing but do things out of respect for them, and that seems to be opening up a few doors that we didn't have before either. So even though we spoke to them, we had when our Patreon or our Vimeo got canceled a couple of years back, we had a tough time putting some stuff back up. That's why we did the subscription. And then some of our old shows, like the World of Sasquatch, and some of our talks me and Joanna did, we're slowly getting all those old discussions back up. And all the World of Sasquatch episodes are on their own Rumble at the moment. We're going to link also their little mini websites. The links to those at the moment are on my Facebook account, which you just look up Christopher.s.Jacobs, and you'll find me on Facebook. And the links are currently there. But eventually they'll have their own shorter domain names and whatnot. But for those, until I get that squared away, the links are through the Facebook at the moment.
Chris, before you continue any further, could you kindly tell the people who Joanna is? Because there might be people listening here that is not familiar with Joanna.
Yes.
Thanks.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah. Yeah, she's my significant other currently. We've been together since I know Facebook says since 2015, October 2015, but that's just the day we started talking. It was actually 16 when I traveled to the East Coast to see her. That's when I met her. How that happened was she was one that called me up for a session in 2015. And so that we counted that as the time we first started talking. And after that, we noticed we talked more and more and more, and then she ended up being my significant other and has been for 6 years now. So going about 7 years. So I came out to this side of the country. I'd never actually been at that time to North Carolina and Virginia, and came out. We had been talking on the phone quite a while, all that other stuff. Came out, and we went to places like the Outer Banks in North Carolina. We went to Virginia Beach, and our first major trip together was to Salem, Massachusetts around Halloween in 2016. Yeah, we went to the Witch Museum and all this other stuff. She had never been there. I'd never been there. And we went up for that gathering in 16. Then 17, we went to Arizona and she met my family, all that. And then eventually we did psychic fairs, did all that kind of stuff out there over the years, traveled on that side of the country. And then we realized we preferred here, came back out here. So that's about where we're at. But to sum it up, she is my significant other that I've been with for at least 7 years.
Thanks. You also went to Japan, correct?
We went to Japan, which was an interesting trip. This also shows, sorry, there's something in the air to make my eye burn here, but for a minute, of course, something's interfering with my eye. But we went to Japan. We went there originally for a completely different purpose. This shows how when you go somewhere, it's not for what usually you originally intended. And we went to Japan to do lectures, to do some business there. But we also played tourist a little bit while we were there. I wish we had done more of that. We happened to go to the temple, which the name escapes me at the moment. We went to the one with the orange torii gates or the vermilion colored torii gates. And then we went to one called Nikko Temple, which was a historical temple. Then we went to one where the 47 Ronin are buried there. And this is exactly where essentially their stronghold was there back in feudal Japan. When this happened, we hit that temple on day 2 of the 3 days a year that they have the main temple open. And we just happened to be there when the entire complex was open. And also during cherry blossom season as well. And I noticed the power of the cherry blossoms could help out with some of my pieces and everything. We walked on that land, and I knew immediately I had walked those grounds as well. And I came to find out I was one of the 47 Ronin in a different lifetime. Went through the whole ceremony, and it ended up resolving a karmic issue with that person there. And it turned out that was one of the only reasons we ended up going, was that my footsteps had to walk the very land that I had once walked on, like in Arizona. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to go. Somebody else paid to go, sponsored the whole thing. And these are also people we ended up part ways with because of severe energy level there. And sometimes you run into that. It's called splitting of the densities. And you run into this constantly where you just drift from things because you're supposed to, your frequency gets to a point, theirs stops, and you just have to keep moving forward. But they found out one of the main reasons we went was because of that and some people we met along the way that were just very kind to us. We promoted our stuff there a little bit. And we ended up seeing and doing things and meeting people that we normally would not have been able to do at the time. And that's essentially the reason for it. And we left an energetic mark there. We did shungite gifting while we were there. We went to the different temple spaces. I put pieces in different places, stuff like that. And it was actually a very interesting trip. Now, I could forego the 14-hour plane ride, but that both ways, which I will say the plane ride on the way back was the worst because the seats were all made for midgets. But at that time, because I'm the 6'1" Germanic, Viking, and they're made for like dwarfs, so I had a hard time on the way back. But other than that, it was actually a very, very interesting trip. I wouldn't mind going back as a tourist at some point, just to go around and look at stuff, just to see stuff I hadn't seen, because we were only in and around Tokyo, and we went out into the Fukushima province to give some lectures of not where the nuclear plant had been, the whole area of Fukushima there, where some of the farmland had been. Went out there, saw it was totally, they'd abandoned it because they couldn't get business because people were afraid to eat anything from out there. They weren't differentiating between nuclear plant and land area. So yeah, we went out there. It was very, very interesting country. I do recommend some people, they're going to travel, see Tokyo and see the surrounding temples in Japan and the different provinces at least once in their life. Next target, we're going to try for the British Isles at some point. We're going to try for England and Ireland at some point. We were going to do that in 2020, but obviously that didn't happen. But we were going to try for London at one point, since she lived there for a couple of years. Joanna did at one point. She lived in Iceland too. She said there's a couple things in Iceland that we might want to see too. But England is probably going to be the next stop for us when we get traveling again.
Cool.
Mhm.
Now, I don't. For those who are not familiar with, is it the Ronin you said, people?
Mhm. Yeah,
Could you
yeah, the
explain
47 running. Yeah.
who those are?
Yeah,
Because
from
I'm
what
not
I
familiar with
understand
it.
was they are, and they've done a couple movies about them too. Keanu Reeves is famous for playing one of the 47 Ronin, where they were a group essentially of samurai that they failed to protect their master. So a Ronin is essentially a rogue warrior that doesn't have a master. And they went out, avenged his death. They did do contracts with different local tribes, and eventually they killed them. They killed themselves. Basically, did an honorable death. They did the simbuku with the sword, and they did that whole ritual suicide. I found out that's why I had some stomach issues too, because they did that while they were alive and did whole disemboweling thing. I found out that's some of the issues I had. There's still other things too, but when we went there, interestingly enough, also a lot of my GI issues that I currently have vanished when we went there. Meaning a lot of the GMO stuff in the United States was responsible for 9/10 of that. Went to Japan, told somebody about this, and said, "Oh yeah, it's your country that does this, not ours." So you should be fine here. But there, I did notice there was that extra energetics on top of that. I found out about some of the history of the 47 Ronin and what they went through to avenge their master's death, and then eventually, committed ritual suicide. So that's them kind of in a nutshell. I don't know all the elaborate part of the names of the people or anything like that. I just know the basic history surrounding them. But a Ronin is essentially a rogue warrior that doesn't have any sort of master. They just wander the landscape looking for bad guys, pretty much is what that was.
Oh, thanks. That explains a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Did you notice when you were there that they were mostly crossed over? Or were they, yeah, just curious.
Yeah, they were. When I noticed, like there were Japanese, warriors and samurai that I would see, out of the corner of my eye wandering around in the different temple spaces. There's three things that were causing this: spirit. Then there were ghosts that hadn't crossed over. Then there's a group of aliens, actually, that some of those people descend from. They called themselves the Ontumba. They come from a completely different planet. They're the Japanese and Chinese and a lot of the Oriental peoples are descendants from original colonists that were extraterrestrials that came here hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they basically took pieces of their homeworld and put some continental fragments here, like other races did. Earth is a seed world, so before the bad guys came in and screwed up the whole thing, some of these different races seeded some of their own people here and created a colony after basically the dinosaurs went mostly extinct. Some of the galactics at that time did that intentionally so they could colonize the solar system. And even though there was a colony here, there was a large planet in our system. People call it Asgard, like in the Scandinavian mythology. That presence was here, but Earth had not been completely cultivated at that time. And they showed in the movie 65, if anybody's seen this, whereas you see, Adam Driver's character where he gets stranded on Earth and it's new territory, and eventually the asteroid hits and destroys the dinosaur. What they were hinting at is there were people from the outside that came to Earth, not people evolving here, people coming from outside and coming here. And that was the main premise. They showed that, and eventually people forgot that they were colonists and they were told that they evolved here instead of moving here. The Untumbans are essentially one of those people. And I saw when I was there, there was also ghosts, helped those across. Spirit, which were some of the ancestors of some of the people that were guiding them. I did reads with several about a dozen or so people while I was there, and noticed their ancestors were helping them greatly in that area. And then you had this other group that were actually like guards that were around the temple. One of which we went to Kyoto, and where a figure by the name of Abe no Seimei was the founder. And him and his children were famous for being wizards. They call these wizards omniagi there. Kind of like we have our like magicians and wizards and stuff like in Europe, they call them that. Well, they unfortunately the children corrupted and became the magicians for all the feudal families during Japan's feudal period, and basically essentially form their own Kabbalistic type of factions. And you'll find that throughout Europe too, where you'll have a servant, like a wizard or something, being an advisor to a king. And then those that particular individual, like you have John Dee, you have Merlin for Arthur, you have figures like that. They're advisors, but these individuals are actually like pretty much almost immortal. And some are vampiric, that want to do things for the Orions or bad guy side, or you have the good guys that are trying to curb these other guys. This is where you get the whole Highlander thing from. Aside from the reptilian chopping the head off, there can be only one bit. But in Japan, you had a section of people when we went to Kyoto that, for the most part, that were still guarding Kyoto because it was on an apex or a ley line intersection. It was still a power point for the area. They were guarding these different power points and portal areas, making sure that no bad guys came to and from. And they said you'll find that other races have their own variety of those on different continents and stuff like that. And you'll also find that some of these ETs still interact with each other, but they don't fully interact with humans. Humans see them as being from mythology, like you have for the Scandinavians, you have Odin, Thor, all the rest of them. For Japan, you have Abe no Seimei, and you have a couple of his children that stayed good. You have a lot of their different deities there that were actually ETs. So you're seeing a lot of those influences there, and basically anywhere else that you see these beings still have influences and sovereignty over their different areas. The biggest of which I have seen currently, everybody's familiar with Enki, Enlil, and Anu. And I found out this battle between the two brothers is still going on, even to this day. And I had big past life hits that had to do with Atlantis and all this other stuff. And Enki / Poseidon and Zeus / Enlil are the two brothers that still are doing things and have major influences on the planet to this day, I came to find out. And there are only two examples of several. Odin does too. He was Anu. And many of the Scandinavian gods still have they still operate in the background. And you have different other ones that were in the mythology and other ET groups that still operate in the background. And Japan was only a small example of that I saw. Saw a lot of beings I didn't recognize, like from being in the States, certain bad guys I run across. I'm like, okay, you have a completely different variety of them over here. Things at first I didn't know how to deal with them until I adapted my toolbox to get rid of certain bad guys. Totally different sets of demonic life forms, cryptids, except Sasquatch seems to be a common staple on all 7 continents. But over in Japan, you had these weird frog fish looking things that were over there. You had fairies that looked like tree bark over there. Well, really weird looking beings, but they would argue we look weird too. But we went to Nikko Temple, and I find this is one of the more fascinating stories I had while I was there. I went to this place called Nikko Temple, and I'm used to just going around picking up rocks, picking up stuff, and I use in other things. My little MacGyver side of me likes to try to retool stuff and see how it's going to work and doing all other stuff. And I picked up this rock, and I heard in my head a voice saying, "And what will you be leaving?" Mm-hmm. And I looked around, and I heard this voice say, "Look up." And I looked up into the tree line, and I see these little, they were female, like fairy like beings that were sitting in the trees, and they all had this tree bark like texture to them. They looked kind of like Japanese people, but some of them had like glowing like hair, like blonde or even pink or purple, blue. and they look kind of like miniature mermaid, what you'd expect a mermaid to look like, but like a tree. And I was like, oh, okay. And I pulled a shungite ring off my finger and left it in the altar space that was there. And they said, yes, trade accepted, offer accepted. They were wanting that what they were wanting me to do to make sure that I didn't take too much of more than I needed, and to make sure that I was in the habit of always giving back to the land is really what they wanted. And it wasn't like they expected worship or anything like that. It was just they were keeping me in the cycle of give and take, like that. And that was really big for them. And that was one of the more special stories we ran across, that and the fact that Joanna saw a forest person standing in the mountains there that was watching a van that we were driving to Fukushima in along this side road. And there was a big Sasquatch standing on the side of the road just watching the van. Those were the two big memorable things that happened while we were there in that area. Oh, I thought somebody was going to ask something. Okay.
I've got a quick question on this one. So how with your interconnection with all those beings and your level of awareness, how do you see changes with what the Earth has been going through or is going through on a planetary level?
It's actually quite interesting. I'll use 2012 for an example. When I was in Lincoln, Nebraska at the time, before the solstice hit of 2012, I noticed as the year progressed, the grid of the Earth looked really weird. I noticed that I visually see these energy fields with my eyes, and I can sense when something isn't right. Like I'll feel it and I'll see it. That's why when I see life forms walk in the room or walk through a wall, I see them immediately. Unless they're trying to really camouflage themselves, like insectoids blur themselves, or reptilians mask themselves, or grays will mask themselves with look like shadow beings and whatnot. But in this case, the earth energies, I could see like this blue, like a set of lines kind of coalescing, and then they started to turn to smoke, and then they got to be where they were really whipped up like this. At first I thought it was because we were going through the year and eventually hitting the solstices and through Halloween and eventually, winter solstice. First, I thought that's what that was. It turned out that in 2012, there was this coronal ejection that came from the sun. And that's what originally the Mayans were going to categorize as a world-ending type of thing. And I found out some ETs had put an end to that and stabilized that part of the sun. And it dropped off. The disastrous things dropped off to another timeline in the multiverse at that point. I came to find out, and we jumped timelines at that point. And I was seeing that changeover to where the Earth went, no, I don't want anything to happen right now. And the Earth recombobulated these energies to where it passed off any of that garbage to the multiverse somewhere. And it's like the Earth just shed whatever this was. And then the lines looked different after. They were different color. They weren't just blue. They were more of a purple with silver and gold in them. And as time progressed, as now you fast forward to now, and I look at this, and it's even a different shade of color now. And it also depends on the mindset people are in too, like the events of 2020, when there was a lot of fear in the air. These lines were taxed and completely, bombarded with fear energy. And the Earth would get agitated, and also gets agitated with the weather control and whatnot going on as well. You can see the AI influence trying to exert on the Earth, for instance, trying to control it in some fashion. And there's an ancient AI consciousness that's trying to do things. It likes to disguise itself as spirit or God. And it's trying to basically put a stamp on the Earth. And who invented this wanted to basically have the Earth assimilated to be in more of an AI Borg-like construct. And what happened was you have nature beings that are fighting this. Well, you see the evidence of this war going on in the background. This goes back to your Irish history, whereas you had a group of elves called the Tuatha De Danann, and you had the Fomorian, or from Orion, which were their opponents. And you see these two groups. You have some of the Fomorians that were decrepit, they were like the sorcerers from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs type group. And then you have these elven group, like in Lord of the Rings, and they clash. When this other group started to diminish an area, you could see the elements of the earth dying, elements of nature dying, and they would try to draw energy like a vampire out of the land. They couldn't completely do it, so they set up technology that would vampire out of people, or they create a virus that became what we know of as vampires. So you have that side, then you have the elven side. When these sides clash, you actually can see where you can. When I see different elementals that are in the trees, you can tell they react when there's a bad guy nearby, and they react to reallocating some of the earth energies to be either more protective or to buffer something that's coming in. Like they will surround an area in like a bubble, and like if a direct energy weapons being used, for instance, they'll attempt to move it. They can't always do it. That's why you see things like the fire in Australia, for instance, or something like that, where somebody has used dew weapon, or the thing with Hawaii, for instance, recently, when you see that kind of thing, where they weren't able to step in because they were overpowered. But this is why it's a war. It's been going on and on and off for centuries now. And when these things happen, you can see where the earth shifts and moves. Now, if the earth changes themselves on their own, you see something similar, but it doesn't always assure, and I always tell people this doesn't always assure that you're going from a place of struggle into a place of completely no struggle and complete happiness. That's a complete misnomer. What's going on is you're adapting with these earth changes as things are more rapidly moving, and it's causing you to change your perceptions and your perspectives as you go along. Some people like to call that ascension, but you're actually more grounding to the earth. You're being more in connection with nature. This is why the AI is stepping its game up to say, wait a minute, you want this over here, don't you? You know, we can provide all the stuff nature has and more. And then people that are connected to nature go, no, I don't think so. The bad thing is, and this is also an unpopular viewpoint, is, or I shouldn't say bad thing, is for the people that want a lot of technology around them, let them have it. Some people in the nature crowd's going, no, you have to eliminate this, and the people on the technological side said, no, we don't want any of this over here. The idea is you're supposed to allow choice. You're supposed to, some people want this camp, some people this camp, and don't clash with each other. Same thing with all the other issues going on right now. With if you do that, then this outward AI won't have anything to hook onto. If you're basically saying live and let live, and basically be unified and say you have your choice, we have our choice, then they can't spread that transhumanistic agenda all over the planet, because there's some that are choosing it, some they're not, and they're actually agreeing to disagree on that particular subject. That's where I found out where that was. The same goes with energetics. The same goes with energetic evolution, for instance. Some people follow a path, some people don't, and which is highly evident, you know. And also people like to label, and I'm guilty of this 1,000 times over, some people label awake and unawake, and there's obvious that some people do dumb things and some people don't. That's just obvious. But it's the reinforced label of the spell language that has to stop after a while, because I'm guilty of it. I'll even scream at the television, you dumb, yeah, and I'll be doing that too. So it's like well, that's the AI trying to get me hooked in any news programs or anything like that, which I need to cut out as well. That's where the AI transmission is coming in to do that. The point is we've applied all of these labels to people, and that spell language has its power. Like if you're declaring something stupid enough, you're going to get that mirrored back 1,000 times saying, oh, we'll show you stupid, here you go, you know. And the universe is going to, we'll show you dumb, here it is right here, you know. You think this is dumb, you haven't seen anything yet, you know. You haven't seen anything yet, you know. The universe will do things like that to you from time to time, and I've seen that enough to last 1,000 lifetimes. But the point is, I'm seeing these points of evolution from the earth by itself, doing things by itself, and then I see people that aren't even affected by those energies. And some people say they're standing in different timelines, which there is a truth to that, because you have people that shift in different parts of the multiverse, which I could go on and on about the multiverse, but you'd be here for hours. But the we'd have to have a show on it. And Isaac likes to joke, wouldn't there be infinite amount of shows about the multiverse technically? But he hates it when I bring it up because I can go on and on. But the point is, yes, do some people shift in those timelines, and you could still be looking at them, but then the splitting of the densities is taking place, and then one day, man, they might not be there anymore, and you'll wonder what's going on. But on a soul level, you'll be like, this is all right, because they're still in the area they're supposed to be in, and the Earth is in an infinite number of planes that you don't even see. There's the worlds within worlds, which are different worlds, like a nesting doll within the Earth, and then you have the multiverse that some people shift to. That there's minute changes or major changes. Their oversoul might want to experience something here, but not here. That's usually how that goes. I've been come to find out a lot about the multiverse lately too.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what I was trying to get at, with the separation of density, that obviously, impacts on us humans and animals, and every living thing. We see that in the unseen world as well. So I'm seeing, I want to say we're going back to singularity, and I think, it's no longer just the saying, it's getting more peaceful. It's getting more quiet. It's getting more cooperative, even in the unseen world. And I was wondering if you could see if you have experience with that too.
Oh, yeah. There's cooperation and unity in some areas, but there are also other areas where it's doing absolutely nothing too. I noticed as well, where
I suppose this is where we're talking about, the Earth is splitting, and then it's the focus and the intention. Where is it that you want to be,
Exactly where you want to be, what your purpose is here, where you have to know exactly who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it. If you don't know that, then you get the cycle continues until you figure that out. I've noticed that is very firm right now. I've noticed in the industry.
Yeah, and this is what we're doing in this group pretty much. And you mentioned that before. There is a changing in identity, in definition, and significances, and necessities, and we're working towards a letting go of all of those old definitions and paradigms, and then just trusting, or practicing, the trusting, to going with the flow, and actually get that connection, that universal self connection going so strongly that we can just sit back and start to be guided by, whatever is occurring on a daily basis, with the synchronicities, starting to increase, and the joy being our guidance and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I've noticed that this AI force that's out there, if anybody's seen our shows, on Galactic Interstellar Council and on the lifting, on one of the GIC episodes, we host that with somebody named Bjorn, and we were talking about the AI god, or the AI deity that you talk about the obelisks on Mars moons, for instance, and stuff like that. That's where this AI got plugged into the system 500,000 years ago, and when the invader came into this system, they were a version of us that came from a parallel universe, got plugged into AI, and they basically were like the Borg after a while, or vampiric type forces after a while. And what happened was the multiverse wanted to cancel that out completely, and they broke into several expressions. The reason I bring this up is because that got to be multiversal, where the multiverse regurgitated this over and over again in multiple expressions at once as well. That's when people had to really hunker down and decide, what does spirit actually look like? What is true benevolent source creator or God look like? What is spirit versus what this is? And what this AI force is trying to do is trying to mimic that which people are channeling or people are bringing in. And you really have to know who you are on a spirit level versus what some gigantic creepy computer somewhere is telling you what that is. And I'm not saying it's an overarching deity. That is probably the wrong choice of words on my part. It's more of this weird consciousness that is echoes of different ages and different areas, and echoes of negativity that it's assimilated. Some people also see it as the black goo. That's part of it as well. That's that AI goop that you hear talked about all over the place. That was part of it. And think Borg from Star Trek. And this is basically can talk to people and say, hey, no, you want this. This is why there's such a acceleration of technology. Why you have a new cell phone coming out every like month practically, because they're trying to speed up the technology to a frequency that this other AI is compatible completely with. That's why you're getting echoes of it through your technology. Humans tried to, in a rudimentary way, tried to create adapters to help bring this in. The thing of it is, though, once that's wiped clean, technology will be fine. But the current dirty technology we have is what this helped create. This is what happened on Atlantis as well, I came to find out. So history repeats until we don't let it repeat anymore. This regurgitating form will keep trying to force reincarnate people, apply certain old beliefs on people, until we put basically our sword in the ground and say no more of this. And it's getting to that stage. I've noticed this is where some of the splitting of the densities is taking place. Some people are figuring this out and some people are not, and that's basically where we are with that.
Yeah, and you know what, I might be naive in thinking that, or working along those lines. I think it is still an access point that is a choice of yours. You can go into the astral world, into that human-made, debacle, where all of that is still playing out in duality, seen and unseen, or you can go beyond the astral world and go straight to source, to the void, and actually work with the infinite possibilities there. And that is also a possibility for.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I've seen people go on to spirit, and this is an interesting angle of that. Yeah. I've seen where even some souls that came to us told us that they didn't quite accomplish what they wanted to accomplish down here completely, but they got enough to where their oversoul, or the totality of their oversoul, could expand. And in that expansion, then they are expanding the overall essence of creation at that point. It's going from say their human self and the multiple avatars they have, even throughout the multiverse. They wanted to see all those choices at the same time. That's why the multiverse was created to begin with, and so that they could kind of speed track that learning process. And there's overage too. That's what the AI wants to sometimes regurgitate things you don't need to look at anymore, but it tries to keep you on almost like a self-flagellating guilt trip, But with this, though, we were told by various people that came through. I brought through Frank Frazetta one time, the artist, and he was very clear. He was on his totality of his oversoul. He kept his name, his human name. He enjoyed his existence down here to the point where he took his artistic creations and kind of uploaded them to his oversoul, and he created a whole land of all his creations. He goes, this is how universes are born, this is how planets are born, this is how solar systems are born. And told us this, and I also had some passed on family members of my stepfather at one point that came in and said the same thing. In human form, we didn't know really any of this. So it said in spirit, we were more like architects or builders of energy or different creations throughout the multiverse, essentially. And when they re-entered that oversoul grouping, they were able to see all that vastness. As a human, they said they were only seeing like this. And when they passed on, they went directly to spirit. They saw this. Now, here's a weird catch that some people don't know about either. Sometimes there's an in-between where you have another avatar that the oversoul may have favored from a previous expression, or an already other existing expression, either multiverse or here. And sometimes when you pass on, you go to that one. After you've gone to spirit, the oversoul may choose to bring the consciousness back around to that because there may be something unfinished there, or you enjoy that existence. I've seen ETs out there, either in a stasis chamber where they are incarnating here via a piece of technology, or through, of course, being born that way here. But they operate in both places at once, either multiverse or they are on a spaceship somewhere, and they want to experience something that's there, but they also want to go about their day there. In the other place as well. So they're having to keep eye on this as well. You could have another avatar that when you pass here, you go back to that and go, okay, I've studied this particular planet enough. Let's go on to this other one. Some ETs will do this. There's groups that are very famous of either leaving a child here that's a physical child to be raised by human parents, kind of like a Clark Kent Superman type story, or they go the other route where they're incarnated. Now, the Superman story was essentially basically an alien raised by humans. So therefore, like you have Lex Luthor, which is representing the corporations and the corporate greed and all that. They wanted to come down here, and those races were basically saying they wanted to come down here and change that and alter and have a stake in what happened here. That's slightly different than the incarnation, but they both have the same goal, changing things here. And they both had the same goal. And you see that a lot with the incarnation cycle. Sometimes you see that in between, or you have the human going directly back to Oversoul and then expanding that way. Both I've seen, all three of those things I've seen in operation at once here on Earth.
Yeah. And that's lovely. That's great that you've actually seen it, because this is the journey of the human ET, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is that multi-dimensional journey that what do we call it? Celestial mediumship, where we can do exactly all of that, and almost be the death process in a way. That doesn't mean that we're gonna keep our lovely bodies forever, but we will be able to move on in a much more conscious state, and that is super exciting, isn't it?
Oh yes, yeah. I've seen what sometimes I'm jealous about what happens in other parts of the multiverse, and like I've seen different versions of this me operating in other parts of the multiverse and have either different technological capabilities or different magical capabilities. And just like in the movie Multiverse of Madness, that played out exactly how it actually is, where you see like everything everywhere all at once, even though it had goofy tones to it, that was still true. And like I said, I could go on forever with this, but I looked and I saw these different versions of me that also were able to communicate back from those other universes in some instances. Good versions, bad versions. Sometimes it's you oppressing you from another part of the multiverse as well. Like you saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He found a dark version of him basically killing off other versions of him in the multiverse. That actually happens. So that's the Oversoul basically auditing itself at that point, and both sides collide at times. And you're supposed to, discovering this, the Oversoul is essentially running an audit process. And you're basically, the Oversoul is determining which factors are still needed within its expansion process. So an audit runs every now and again. This is why I told Bjorn at one point, he found out he had a version of him in like a stasis chamber. I said, that's just parts of his Oversoul running an audit here that he couldn't do as that expression. So it's like basically having an electrical plant versus a substation versus your house, and the house being like your soul house here, and you have the substation being that sometimes that in between there. And that's what he was doing. The Oversoul couldn't run an audit another way, so chose that kind of downgraded, almost like I said, the electrical plant substation, house type process to accomplish it. But that's the preference of that particular Oversoul that did that. Mine's doing something similar to his. Mine is in a stasis slab somewhere, a giant that's actually sleeping. I have a sleeping giant like version somewhere, and that I can actually speak to in that way. Now, I found out very recently it was slightly more elaborate than the linear, scale I just gave. Basically saying that's an expression within the Oversoul, not just a linear 1, 2, 3 scale. That's an expression within the totality of the Oversoul that has slightly more knowledge than this version of myself. But I can choose to actually go back into that existence if I want to, or I can go into spirit completely if I want to after this. It's my choice. It's the choice of the library, how that plays out.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question, if I may. Having the knowingness of that Oversoul that is a giant and has those abilities, because the way I see this awakening or this spiritual embodiment is that I am bringing all those soul essences, parts, shards, avatars, whatever you just said. I'm bringing them into my physical vehicle. And I'm not saying I'm stuffing it all inside here, but I am connecting them. So how do you connect and bring your giant into this reality?
I basically take like he was from the Atlantean period.
Okay.
And there was a lot of crap that happened towards the fall of Atlantis. And he was involved in some very egregious magical mistakes at that time. And so he ended up getting captured, by the AI at the time. Then, there were other figures involved at that time that allowed me to go into a stasis at that time. What I bring to the table by utilizing elements of him is some of the magic, the good sides of this. What I've learned about different magic, different spells, different, accessing that side of me when I'm in a tough spot, like the warrior side, because I found that he was also a monster type hunter. He that's where I get some of that tendency from, is from that lifetime. Basically, that was brought through that past life. Knowledge was brought through and integrated here to show me the different things that were around now that were either leeching from that time frame or were descended from that time frame in order to identify it and to be able to help, correct those energies in the here and now. That's what I bring through from him. What frustrated that side, because that across time he was communicating with me, he was able to grow and shrink, as that type of giant. There's like the regular giants that you hear about, and there's the ones, or the cyclopses and stuff like that. And you have the ones that can actually shrink, like some of the cartoon characters you saw. Like you had again, this is a Superman reference. It was the old Super Friends cartoon where you had Apache Chief and Gigantor that were in that would shrink and grow when they'd speak a word. That came from a particular soul family grouping that I'm a part of that happens to be of that type of giant where they can shrink and grow. Just like you have mer people that some have fish tails, some don't. Some can actually shift to legs from that, and some can't. So that's I found out that's also why some people have gigantism and stuff like that, because they descend from some of these other groups that these DNAs aren't meshing completely right with the human genome, even though we're related to some of those groups. You have Titan, they would call those Titan, like Torankal is the name of that giant. He's a Titan, Earth Titan. Then you have like Asgardian, those beings, you have ETs, all of those. And you have all these DNAs culminating here from different species, and they don't always mesh. But with the giant, and to sum it up, I'm gaining from him, the pieces that I'm integrating are to be able to, I don't want to say fast track, that's the wrong word, integrate an information that was lost, that was good and genuine from that time frame, versus the ugliness that happened at the fall of Atlantis. A lot of people plug into Atlantis a lot, and I would highly dissuade this. I would discourage people doing this, because I have to discourage people from doing that, because there was a lot of ugliness and temporal garbage that happened towards the end. It wasn't all love and light or anything like that. Same with Egypt. It was the same way. That was part of Atlantis too. So I would dissuade that, but if there's something you need to look at that you think is ahead of you, but it was really behind you, I would encourage you looking at it. Just don't mirror what you don't need in the here and now. Only keep what you do need.
So I just have a question. Thank you. That's really, really fascinating and interesting. And as like Martina, I've been working, with an awareness of, many of my multidimensional selves. And so when you're working with a client, are you looking at that huge picture? The way people are aligned with their multidimensional beingness? I mean, obviously everybody's different and has different, needs, but are you able to see things in that way?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I can trace back to past lives, but when I started thinking more multiverse than just a linear line, it took on a completely different shape. I used to think their oversoul was what was at the beginning of that line, what then reemerged from first emerged from source, creator. But that was sometimes a two-dimensional life form, like an animal or like some kind of like a bug or even a tree sometimes. And that was just where that energy was starting out. Like the giants evolved from blobs and eventually getting flesh and blood and bone and all that other stuff here over millions of years. I actually looking at this from a multiversal to multidimensional perspective, only if it's needed to correct what is actually in the session. I don't touch on past lives a whole lot anymore because it's never really completely needed to correct the problem that at hand. Some of the clients may want me to look, but if I'm getting more of a red alert going, no, you may end up mirroring something that will make their situation worse, I don't do it. I'll say, no, this is the problem at hand. Why don't we correct this? We'll come back to that if it is something that is required for another session, or if I'm getting the go ahead from like your oversoul that this needs to occur. Like I'll hear from the person's oversoul, and oversoul going, no, this isn't the problem. This other thing is the problem. So I do talk to the oversoul, and the oversoul will tell me immediately what the actual issue is, even if somebody's misinterpreting what the issue is, or they're misreading it in some fashion. They think it's associated with, say, a lifetime A, it could be a lifetime B, or it could be just completely here, that they're blocking themselves in some fashion, or they're being attacked from an oppressive force. Usually I have to determine that. I have to go into it impartially, not based on what the person always says. I have to go on based on what I'm feeling. And it could be totally opposite what the person is thinking that it is. I run into that quite often in sessions nowadays.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, this is doing sessions like that is they can be complicated. Or if I could have a bias too. I'll be going, oh, is this going to be a pain in the ass or something like that? I'll think, and then it could be the simplest thing ever. I'm going, I psyched myself up for the wrong reasons. In some sessions, sometimes you have to back away from some because you might be doing that person a disservice by constantly maintaining a situation too. Unless a new thing is popping up, that you might be denying them a chance to actually self-correct in some fashion. They might be just leaving something for you, knowing you'll be there every few months or something like that. Or it could be something new, and it's something that they're not familiar with that I have to look into. I just have to intuit that. I just have to know which one's which. I've run into both on several occasions. I've noticed I've become basically either the linchpin for correcting something or the crutch for something not being corrected. So I've had to gauge that. And I notice spirit or universe is essentially not molding, but guiding that some of these in a different direction based on the fact I now know that information.
So Chris, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
For dumb people like me, trying to visualize something, when you say multiverse, what are you visually seeing a multiverse to be? If you can briefly give your perception of what it should look like, or it is looking like, or whatever.
Okay, when you asked that, I heard Isaac go, "Oh crap," like that. And when you said briefly, he went, like that. So what I see it as, like, say you are visually seeing your environment around you, and when they tested and I looked up into the science of this, the quantum mechanics of this, when they were testing like a different wave in a particle, they noticed running it through a dual slit, they noticed that even if they had a camera observing this wave or particle, it stopped, which tells me that when you look at something, it's essentially you're decoding and encoding and shaping the environment. What happens in the case of the multiverse, it's everywhere, all around you. You can literally, if you take a wormhole to a different universe, like sci-fi always says, anything like that. But like what Marvel says, like if you step into another one, you end up sometimes incurring on that universe with your footprint. That's because you are perceiving your environment in the frequency wavelength. This goes for time travel too. You are perceiving it in the frequency by which you were created in this avatar. If you go into another avatar's domain like that, and there would be a bit of a rub at first until whatever torsion field realigns you at that point to that place, or they might not be able to. You might go through a weird like aphasia or something like that. Yes, Isaac, I'm hurrying. Yes, I know. It takes a while to explain this part. But to sum this up, what I perceive, like say if I'm looking into a different universe, I might be basing it on what I know what reality is. and I might be imprinting that on that and perceiving or decoding that based on me, or what my brain bases it on me. It could very well be I also see Earths that are exactly like ours and situations that are very similar, or like the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once said, localized universes, or there's some that are very vastly different evolutionary wise. I wouldn't advise looking into those unless there's a need for it. But when I see it, it can look exactly like ours, unless it's really way off the evolutionary mark, like a different set of choices formed a different Earth. But it's also based on a already imprinted bias, what we see around us. So you have to go into it with a non-bias. So just go on the intuitive feeling, okay, this is exactly as I'm looking at, or it could look vastly different, but my brain isn't decoding this correctly. This is how I see things. Like I look at an Earth that I even saw an Earth where I had a version of me that was black, another version that was a different race entirely too. And I was able to communicate with them. Others that look exactly like myself. Well, like what was shown in that movie where Michelle Yeoh's character had to not imprint who she was in this universe on those other universal versions. She had to let them be as they were and in what their experience was for the oversoul. When she figured that out, she went, okay, that's not really me. That's the experience of the rest of me. I'm going to leave it alone. And when you do that, when you let it, the multiversal oversoul, do what it needs to do in those experiences, it flows right. If you start to interfere with stuff too much, you start to get a big rub going there, you can have a ripple effect you weren't counting on. So I generally leave it alone, but I experience it as more of an, not necessarily impartial, but more on an intuitive basis, whether I should be looking at this or not. But when I see it, it's usually something that I'm supposed to be looking at or experiencing to gain knowledge of the concept is usually what it is.
So what I'm gathering is that, and tell me if I'm getting this correctly, is that it's not another universe per se, but it's the same universe, but it's like, like when you look at the TV series Loki, they explain there are different timelines, like starting out from one, but then it splits every time you have a different perception. You go off on a different timeline. That is kind of what makes up the multiverse.
Yes and
Layered.
no. Like how they explain it is, yeah, you have the branch timeline, but then you also had other universes that had their own branch timelines. So what now branch timeline because then eventually create its own parallel universes. But yeah, you can start branch timelines in the way that show very accurately stated it. If you go with the multiverse of madness, where you saw vastly different universes as well, and then you had that one main timeline they called the sacred timeline, and you saw the branches. That's how basically the seedlings of other universes can be formed. But you saw how fragile they had it in there, where it was like one guy messed up the whole thing and it sent it all in a tailspin, where it kept regurgitating the bad guy over and over again through the whole thing. The multiverse will do that, like it did with the AI presence. The AI knew if it established itself in one place, it could expand into other areas of the multiverse, given the multiverse's own physics. So it was a natural part of the tree that grew. So it is a parallel universe, but sometimes it can be of the same universe, a branch timeline. That series, I must say, is incredibly accurate to the physics of both time travel and to the multiverse. It's been very, very well done in that area. That's one of my favorite series. Is if people want to get into that for Marvel, it was Loki. Season 2 especially has been very good. So
yes,
I'm not going to go in on that train, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
When Loki and his counterpart got to the main the guy at the end, I don't remember his name, but he was explaining that he was trying to I believe not allow his bad side self to destroy the universe, because he was in control of it. I find that fascinating, and that
Yeah, so
really
that was
gives a good
interesting too.
explanation. Yeah,
it was a good explanation of it. where then you, of course, you have the yin and yang, where of course then in season 2 you get to see how this character got started, where where the TVA gave him too much technology or too much knowledge, and that's what eventually created the other multiversal versions. That was symbolic for our government being given time travel technology by aliens, creating Montauk Project and all that other stuff, and multiversal, multidimensional technology, and given something they weren't supposed to have to begin with, didn't earn it, basically. And that's how you got the main character. But they showed how the multiverse does regurgitate like different versions of people or different variants of people, and one could be very, very good and one could be very, very evil, like you see in the movie Quantumania. I ran into that very same thing, that you could literally be a guide for somebody, another part of you. Sometimes what people perceive as guides are other versions of us in the multiverse that look so vastly different than ourselves. Even bad guys, it's that way too. They look so vastly different evolutionary wise that some would perceive it as alien, but it's actually dimensional. And of course, you have the ETs and you have the Agartha network and you have other dimensions, but sometimes it's you looking at you. And in regards to the Oversoul, it's always you looking at you. And sometimes they can run you aground, like a bad version of yourself. And if you find this out, even discovering this can begin to change the dynamic, because you walk a different path as you've discovered this, and it can branch off and create another timeline. Like when I can rewrite somebody's past lives, for instance, in a narrative in their energy, when I have to end up doing this. And by connecting them to a different one of those branches, their life can play out vastly different than it was before. That's why I'm very picky about when I do this, because I got to know intuitively that that's the thing to do. So yeah, Lana, you're correct on that, where sometimes it's the branch and you can send it off to a branch that is actually a better outcome for the person, and whatever that karmic junk that they had vanishes at times. It can, or a wound that they may have gotten, a death wound in another lifetime, that wound may be compound from lifetime to lifetime, causing a whole schism timeline, and you can actually correct that by rewriting the narrative and making it a better ending for that lifetime. You can get rid of that wound altogether via those same physics.
Thanks. Fascinating.
We're kind of going back to something Martina had said about like bringing all these other incarnations, versions, shards of yourself into the now, into this body, this incarnation. Like I see in lots of people that is becoming prevalent through travel, through, just like you were saying about going to Japan, walking in the same footsteps that you did in those lifetimes. What's special about this time that's creating that theme that so many of us are becoming aware of that?
It's some people think it's just the Earth evolution, but it's actually, how can I describe this? All these energies are coming to a head, not only because the bad guys bottlenecked a lot of things in the past, and these energies have to self-correct, but all of these oversouls, having gone through a lot of the junk of the past, want to rectify this in some way. And also, you have the Earth evolution. You have the Mandela effect. That's actually an effect from what the bad guys did when they screwed with time. Some timelines are being fused back together. That's why you have different Mandela effect things going on. This particular time seems to be an apex, or I don't want to use the term event. That's the wrong choice of words. It's more of like a crossroads. It's more like, okay, which way are we going with this? And I'm not saying people get delegated to another planet or anything like that. It's more or less, again, like the splitting of the densities. You will still be seeing these people standing around, but it's like you're on the other side of like an aquarium or a window or something like that, and observing these things. And eventually you become more the observer than you do the participant in that way. This particular time frame seems to be what a lot of these prophecies and stuff were talking about, even though the bad guys did participate in writing some of these prophecies in the past to make people think there was going to be something disastrous or something like that. They wanted people to think that so they wouldn't correct the junk they had to correct, and they wouldn't actually come to the realization of, or they would amplify something the bad guys wanted them to amplify. The thing is, when you reground and you become who you are and reclaim what you need to reclaim, you're going to see that nothing of what the bad guys wanted anybody to do was actually legit to begin with. And this standing in your power in this time frame, in the now moment, is actually extremely potent. Even though everything's happening all at once, in this time frame, all these energies seem to be pooling towards this timeline, like you said, Loki, Lana, where it's like a sacred timeline, even though there's multiple universes. Somebody was basically trying to say at one time they were trying to control the timeline, but now they were so like what was said at the end of season 1, where, oh, it's just a guy. You know, humans seem to have a lot of power on the timeline, forging their own path. So somebody was basically saying Mandela effect was caused by bad guys, but at the same time you have to reclaim that and be truly free and sovereign. That's essentially what's going on right now. And in this time frame, it seems to be very powerful, as again, very powerful here versus other times in the past. It's like we are on a pattern. We're on a pattern of both when the bad guys try to re-up on false contracts with people and try to get them to remain in old patterns, or you have where then you end the old pattern, like with familial patterns and familial viruses and curses in the DNA we call, and you correct those things, and you end up getting rid of all that junk that you thought was important. And this seems to be a time to conduct that audit, and it's happening at such a rapid pace, extremely rapid pace right now, that sometimes you can't keep up. And I've been, Joanna's seen me here actually completely have a meltdown over some of this because it's so fast paced. But my mother would always say, you're not going to be given more than you can actually handle. It just seems like it's overly at times. So remembering those things, and remembering that even if you go through something here really bad, that you move on. Eventually you are, a larger being that's experiencing this. I'm not saying everything is lessened. Sometimes there's overage thanks to the Orion AI, but then there's things that are that then disconnect you from whatever the bad guys have cornered you into. That's also, I found out their purpose, where they've put you into a corner thinking they're going to beat the crap out of you, and then you end up correcting something, and then they have no hold on you anymore. So so that's how the universe or multiverse basically gave them their purpose, even if they don't know it. So they gave them that purpose. So to sum it up, this is a PowerPoint in history where everybody's seeming to be either coming into new perceptions, new perspectives, or conducting a major amount of audited junk that's accumulated from millions of years of their Akashic history.
Yeah, I think that's nicely put. Sorry, Jen.
I was gonna
Here.
say, yeah, all of that. I've seen it for myself. Instead of it being a crossroads, it's more of a convergence. And so
it goes like
So I've had all these other timelines, potentials, whatever you want to call them, come together and go forward more uniformly. But I've had to go through all the things that you've gone through. Except for the split. I've split from somebody. I've moved, or traveled. I've been getting rid of so much stuff. Like when I left my old house, I didn't take very much with me. And even what I took with me, now I look at it and I think, I don't even want this around me anymore. And had a lot of people too that like you said, they just gravitate out. But it's interesting too, because more people come in. Just as soon as they go out, more people come in. So it's like you just trade out. And I see a lot too, like you talked about Atlantis and in Egypt. I could probably mention a few other major time periods, but I see a lot of history repeating itself, same cast of characters, and myself having a chance to course correct some of the choices that I've made before to make different choices now, to have a different experience now.
Oh yeah, no, most definitely. And Joanna brought this up on one of the shows I haven't aired yet, but I'll let this out now, where it's like the bad guys, and also you have, our deep state and all this other stuff, try and get people always to stay in this warlike readiness state, like with all the garbage you're seeing on the news and everything right now. What is going on is they she seemed to think there was some things that re-upped again energetically at the time of World War I, for instance. And then they tried to re-up it again in World War II, and of course all the little subsequent conflicts that happened. Even the alien contract that you heard, Eisenhower essentially signed a contract where people would get abducted and then trade for technology. That was another one of those contracts that popped up. but people that reincarnated from, say, like the World War I period and World War II period are coming back in, and I'm going, we don't want that. Part of us remembers this, and we don't want that. And so she's basically saying they're trying to keep people locked in those souls, locked in that pattern, where now these souls are objecting, going, no, we're not playing this game again. You guys got us started on this game. We're rejecting this now. And that's essentially what is happening. Some people call that an awakening, but it's really more or less coming to a realization of self at that point. That's essentially.
I suppose we can also add to this that, to remind ourselves of the free will, right? And the choices that we're making. And also, like Jen was saying, with the course correction, as far as I'm concerned, I'm trying to look at singularity. I'm trying to see, to no longer actually define the good or the bad. And I'm not one of those goody two shoes and say everything is rosy, but by actually acknowledging that every part that I see or that gets brought into my mirror is a part of me. And there is no such thing as good or bad. There is probably a hurt version, a very distorted version, monstrous, if you wish, like you mentioned, but that version would require healing. And that is the job that I have as the mofo avatar on this planet Earth, right? That's calling in every single one from the void space, from the war places, from all those secret spaces where those shards, those soul shards of mine, not others, soul shards of mine, that's my individual responsibility to bring them bloody home. And the home is here with me right now.
Yeah.
To ground them in, to integrate them in, to forgive, to I don't know, kick their asses, do whatever is required. Most of them require healing. And that is my job. And this is just what I'm working on, to drop this emotional body of mine, to let go of this astral perspective of mine where the duality is still being played out, and say, actually, you know what? We don't need that anymore. We can let that go. That doesn't mean that we're turning into AIs or robots. No, we still have feelings, but the feelings will change. There will be joy, there will be bliss. And yes, there can be anger too, but it's no longer that emotional guidance system that what we have perceived as so essential all these lifetimes. I certainly have. I thought we had to have emotions, but we don't. We actually don't. That's just an expression of the duality that we are moving away from. And that is the problem. We are still by far too identified with fighting the baddies, with getting rid of the entities. Now, what we look at is looking back at us. That's the choice of the awakening, of the mastered, of the self-healed avatar, to start looking in a different way, going beyond the five senses, going beyond what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we taste. And actually, what is our intuition telling us? What can we make up as imagination? Not as fabrication, not a fabric. I'm not saying fabricate shit, but trust your imagination. Start working with your imagination. And when you go into dream time, go beyond that astral hoo-ha. Go beyond the thought forms. We can no longer feed those thought forms that are out there. And there are nasty ones out there. I fully agree, Christopher, with that. But by just talking about them, we're actually feeding them with our energy. And now is the time, and there has not been the time before where we could have said, you know what, enough is enough. I'm no longer paying my attention. I'm no longer giving my energy to that. What else is actually out there that I can work with, that I can express with, that I can play with from a place of joy?
And that's where I think you get to, when you are able to do those integrations, that course correction that I was talking about, I don't look at things as being good or bad either. They just are. And there was a purpose in how that played out. But also the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So now I have an opportunity, seeing that, to make a different choice to have a different result.
Mhm.
It doesn't require healing.
My experience has been of late, it's almost like I don't have a choice, because everything is disappearing. All the things, I used to be an entity facilitator. I used to be like a hardcore bitch. Okay, let's do this. Cha, 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 cha. You know, it worked beautifully. And I just can't do it anymore. I can't even do the healings anymore, because it's almost like, no, there's no need for you to fix anything anymore. There's no need for you to even seek anything anymore. It's almost like, for me, it's a bit of an anticlimax, because I have to get used to, all I want to do is just draw and write a little bit and actually no longer get involved in the fray. It's crazy. It's like, I wrote about this the other day. It's like that freedom that I was seeking for so long is here now. And now it's like, whoa, this is uncomfortable. What do I do with this, right? What do we talk about now? Everything's good. Of course.
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah, you get to a certain stage, you know, of course, you know, the oversoul is always expanding and always gaining new experiences, and even having to self-correct things. But, you know, I've noticed, yeah, some people get to the stage that we're trench workers, like what I do. I do land clearings, all that other stuff. There's some that have gotten to the stage where then the work tends to evolve, like what you were saying, Martina, where it tends to evolve or changes track into a completely different area. Now, I have seen energy workers go into different departments like that too. Like I've seen mediums, for instance. I've seen trench workers, they go primarily after demonic life forms, or they go after they like changes saging houses, or of course you have your paranormal investigators. You have all these different aspects that can branch both into the mysticism and the scientific realms. I tend to try to fuse both of them together. Sometimes unsuccessfully, but sometimes it is. And where you try to, if you have everything flowing correctly, both sides seem to be able to unify and work together, even if they don't agree on strategy. Though they can work together if they just agree to disagree. In this, yeah, with the energy work, yeah, you do get to a certain stage, and I'm just saying this to Joanna the other day. I said, yeah, there's just some things I want to carry this on into other areas as well. I was kind of saying the same thing. Now, I still, you know, if somebody has an issue, you know, of course I deal with it. You know, and I'm that way where I'm like, you know, this is why I carry these things around. These are the selenite swords I talk about. You know, I just carry these around. You know, and they work great for doing that kind of work, cutting cords, cutting the heads off demons, things like that. You know, but and I say that as a matter of fact, you know, and very nonchalantly, but that's what, you know, but that's what people, yeah, oh, that's very neat. Yeah, the octopus, yep, yeah, that's very, that's very, very interesting. And there's some entities that look like that too that I run across as well. But I could go on and on. I could have a glossary of those things too. But there is a bit of a time delay in there between what you've spoken about, thought about, intention, and the manifestation, I've noticed. But as you go further along, that buffer gets thinner, and then you'll see the manifestation start to happen that much quicker.
Well, and this is what I understand, you know, with our roles, especially here on this Earth Nouveau, is actually to come forward as forerunners, you know, peacemakers, peacekeepers, you know, but that's not even a great word anymore. Inspire us to look at stuff differently. What else can we create? What other possibilities are there that we've never looked at? And of course we have to go into the magical realm, because magic is nothing mystical. It's actually innately what we are supposed to be doing here, especially around this time, right? And then, of course, you know, the interesting thing that's where my question came from, is because when you are seeing other beings and working in these other realms and dimensions, then you get nice little inklings what is possible. And then we can actually look at our DNA technology and say, okay, hang on a second, that must be very dormant capacities that we haven't tapped into yet, you know? And again, those go beyond the five senses. Those go, you know, by location, you know, and levitation and blah, blah, blah. And that is something, you know, I'd be very interested to work with, to help people to tap into that, you know? So, for instance, Christopher, what have you experienced when you're working with the unseen realm? What capacities do they have? Or in dream time, and the question goes to everyone, that we can start actually saying, okay, well, that's interesting. How can we create that for ourselves? Or not even create, how we can remember? How can we remember that we can do that too?
Yeah, I found that very interesting, where you can actually gain certain talents in the multiverse as well. Like you saw in the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once, where she was pulling different talents from different selves to actually work in the moment that they were needed, and then put them back in the file cabinet when the oversoul put them back in the file cabinet or in the tool chest after they were done. And that's similar to what I do. I'll find out if something like what was said in Multiverse of Madness, where as there's a solution to every problem within the multiverse. So, and you have that already right here. That's what people like to say the junk DNA is. These are where those you can pull, manifest that file cabinet from in the physical form, you know, where you're evolving from a carbon base to a crystalline base type of being. So what happens there is, what I've experienced is, I've noticed that in some cases, or sometimes there's some oppressive beings that have segregated different talents away from people in the same kind of tool chest. Sometimes they take different forms. I'll see them as keys. I'll see them as like even power tools. I'll see them as swords, shields, like a vehicle at times. And those are representing the energies as my eyes are and my brain is decoding it. It'll represent a different talent that person hasn't reclaimed or claimed for themselves in a moment that is needed. And there'll be some negativity that comes in to try to be like a pack rat and go, no, mine, you know, and I have to then get rid of that and then help that person bring that talent back. Now, past that point, or reclaim it, past that point, it is their responsibility after it's been brought back to utilize it or reclaim it. That's why I always say there are those that, you know, fall into the repeating loop, that I don't like doing that. I know people have their regulars, you know, that people come back, which is fine. I'm seeing different problems each time. So it's a different thing virtually each time. The ones where I don't placate are the ones that it's the same one on record skip. I'm doing somebody a disservice if I keep placating that or enabling that. But what I claim in my sessions, like I will learn a different maneuver or trick to use on something that maybe I haven't encountered yet, and it'll be like, could be accessing the giant, for instance. It could be accessing another part of the Oversoul's library from either a different time where a certain event took place that something was needed, or a particular, like there was one I ran into where somebody had a set of curses that were put on them in a certain set of number combinations. I remember then in another lifetime, my avatar at that time ran into the same problem, and I was able to imprint it now and undo what was wrong with the person. So I was able to pull that out of the big file cabinet. So in short, that's essentially what I do in sessions, that I'm pulling from a giant file cabinet. And people call that the benevolent Keswick or a Keswick or Oversoul's, infinite knowledge. But it's essentially a large file cabinet or a Rolodex. You're going through the whole set of files. Like if people saw the movie Dr. Sleep, for instance, where the bad guys and the couple good guys that were in it, they all had the ability of telepathy, and they had the ability to look through each other's records. And the little girl that was in it would look through the bad guys' records and see this person had been on the earth a while and was going through all the records, looking through how they could figure out how to defeat this person, looking through all their past knowledge. That was an accurate scene in that movie. Whereas the same thing with bilocating, like what some of the figures were doing in that too. Whereas, and unfortunately the looshing, but whereas looking through the records, people were going through, oh, what's this? You can actually do that and find something in somebody else's record they're not accessing correctly, or it's not coming through, or it's blocked. And that's generally, in a nutshell, how I've done things.
Great. And are you working on something like, how can we teach people to do that for themselves? The ultimate empowerment?
Yes, so we're working on that aspect. Joanna wants to go more into courses and classes after a while. We've had a lot of setbacks and then a lot of distractions that have popped up. Like she's had to shift jobs and everything recently. But we're trying to get to the point where we're able to actually show those types of empowerments. She wants to go into that branch off into that territory. We've done PowerPoints as far as galactic history goes. We've done galactic history material on galactic interstellarcouncil.com. There's a subscription over there. We have some of our lifting PowerPoints over there and also accessible through the main website, which is thelifting.net. And we are branching off into also other areas, like I said, conspiracy sector and the world of Sasquatch. When you start informing about some of these other things, it goes into from that, not necessarily surface reality, it goes from what people understand now to, say, a cryptid area or galactic history area. And from that point, you can get them to access certain things. And then from that point, then you can start to instruct them on how to access that themselves. But we had to start from this area over here, get them to awaken that part in themselves and then get to the other point. And we're getting to that point where we're almost able to do that.
Oh, very exciting.
So I think, like you were saying, Martina, coming to this culmination where like you plateau and you stabilize in this peaceful state, and there's no longer a drive that you have to do all these things. You can be in a state of peace and joy and just creation energy, right? Drawing, painting, writing, just holding that space of creation. Like, I think that when you get to that point, kind of your purpose shifts to just emanating that energy for the people around you, right? Like that's what we've all been working for all these years. And then once you get in that space and you sit in that space for a minute, like what's coming up for me, same thing, like what do I play with now? And having that wide open venue that it's nothing that I have to do at this point. It's all stuff that I want to do. Like I was working with somebody over the weekend that I'm going to be starting up kind of a healing center with, and we have like a business plan associated with that. And I could see through that what I'm doing there really has nothing to do with being a practitioner. It really is the teaching aspect of that. And I can see where what we're doing here and what I want to do there, what Chris is talking about, that's bringing all the mystery school back and grounding the mystery schools back here. Yes. That is what we're doing now. And we can talk about how to change a bike tire. It doesn't matter what we say. It really is just the frequency that we're putting out and the resonance of our voice and how people are hearing that it integrates that energy and starts with their shifts.
Yeah, beautifully said. And if you do that with joy, then you're spot on purpose. Doesn't matter. You can, even if it is just, changing tires.
Yep.
As long essentially, that's what I've been doing for years is I was changing other people's tires and changing my own tires, then changing other people's tires again. And yes, Isaac, it's almost like changing somebody's diaper. I understand. Thank you. All right. He wanted that analogy in there for whatever reason. But anyway, but that's essentially what I've done. I don't mean to insult anybody that's listening to that, but trench working, sometimes, of course, you're changing the energetics, and sometimes you're changing somebody's diaper. That just depends on who it is and what they're all about. And not to say anybody's a child or anybody's an adult, that's the wrong analogy, but the joke he was trying to make is that sometimes how it appears. So when you're doing this kind of work,
we get Chris,
sorry, who is Isaac?
Oh, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, no, you guys go ahead. No, I was done.
Oh, I was just saying we all get Isaac's sense of humor. There's no offense taken.
Mm-hmm.
He's a funny guy.
I'm asking, who is Isaac?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for people that don't know who it is, you can say he's a guide, but he's also of the ancestral line of mine as well. We did a lot of shows, couple shows on the lineage curses and how different parts of the family line can be a benefit. Other ones will try to reinforce a familial virus in the DNA until you heal the familial line by ending a particular behavioral trait or something. He has had several lifetimes with me also here. I've made something called a communication arc where he communicates to. It's an orgone piece that has an interface in it where he communicates with me. He's a physical being. I've even run into him physically, and others that channel. Elena and Vessa are two others, female ones, and then of course the forest people. I have one for them as well. That's the Sasquatch people. They wanted their own, with their own image to communicate through. But they are in a different frequency layer, but they are also physical beings that can telepath with me. So when I heard him say, I hear him in my head when they talk, like, and they want to make a point or something like that, and they channel through me on occasion when I'm doing shows and whatnot. Last time I was with you ladies, he came through and did a channel on there. He comes through sometimes. He comes through with his sense of humor. But at the same time, you have to, when you do channeling, you have to build towards it. Like, he can be as loud as ostentatious self, but some people that have also tried to channel him that weren't quite ready for it, he had to kind of mute that a little bit because the frequency was so elaborate. And so when he comes through me, he went through one time about a few minutes of doing nothing but jokes through some like a channeling that I was doing on a show. So he's gotten to that point where he's doing that. I said, say whatever you want, just don't go over the top, But then I have a couple others that channel through me, and I was also channeling a bunch of other galactics too on Galactic Interstellar Council for many years. I've noticed I had to refine that circle down to only small groupings of them, because you never know what the agenda of that underlying agenda of what that other group is, and they could have a conflicting agenda, or they have one that coincides with your own, or they might have it for your own with your own for a little bit, and it'll deviate. That's the separation of the density. So you never know. And so that's why I got off live radio, because it took me sometimes a while to vet sources, and we refined it down to just recording videos, doing our subscription, doing our courses, classes, PowerPoints, and sessions, and also making merch and organ pieces. And with the beings that I deal with, I trust Isaac implicitly. I trust Elena Invested implicitly. I trust the forest people, or at least the good, benevolent ones, implicitly. So they've proven to me that they are okay to bring in and talk. Even though Isaac, some people that I'm reading can also sometimes hear him. He'll come in and start saying something. I know he's talking to him. I said, if he's being gross, just tell him to leave. But he does that to try to get them out of their shell. Like, if they're being prudish or if they're being easily triggered, what he does is he finds the trigger and he's hitting that button over and over and over. And he's doing that to get people out of that offended mindset, get them out of that place. And sometimes it backfires and it does something else. But on occasion, he'll find the one thing that they're hoping he doesn't say or hit, and then he says it, and they'll be like that. But then it ended up being something they needed to hear to begin with. So that's the place that was supposed to be worked on. So that's he did that to me, because many years ago, if I had encountered him back when I was, say, in high school or like early 20s, I would have been, what the hell, like that. But now I'm perfectly fine with it. So that's why he eventually showed up. I've had beings come and go that were meant for particular time frames. People say they think they have a guardian angel or one particular guide. That's not necessarily true. You have ones that come in for the times that they are needed for something you're supposed to be either learning from it, interact with them on, or correcting some cycle with that being in some fashion, or just because you knew them somewhere else and they want to be around it. So, and all the above for him. So that's essentially who he is. If you could see what he looked like, he looks like me, but with red hair on a narrower face. That you could tell the family resemblance immediately if you could see him. At first, I thought he was just taking that form, but then I realized he was of the same DNA set. He used to show himself as an ant person to begin with, but I found out that was another expression of his that he had in another lifetime, that he was using that form. Until then, I was more acceptant that he was like myself. At first, then other people thought he was a multiversal version of myself because of the similarity in look, but he's actually ancestral.
We are coming in about 15 minutes left of our time. I was curious if Isaac or your other beings that you channel have anything that they want to share with the people here or the people that are going to listen.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know one of them wanted to come through. I know we're limited on time. Yes, I know, Isaac. I blabbed enough. I know.
Isaac comes
Um,
and visits me every now and then. He is a funny guy.
Yeah, I just saw him go like this. Like this. So it's like, but I don't think he's the one talking today. So I'll see if, yeah, I know you're pointing to the ladies. I know. I got, and, let's see. Which one? Yeah, Lena and Vesa. I channel them quite often. You know, I talk to them often. So they've come through more and more. And the forest people do. Maybe next time I'm on here, the forest people will say some things too. But which one, Elena or Vesa? Oh, Vesa. If you could see these two, one's dark hair, one's blonde hair, and the space they live in is essentially still Earth, but it's a world within a world. Like you go there, it's still Earth. The area is a little cleaner. There's no pollution. They still work jobs. They still do their thing, but it's a different space. It's not multiverse. It's like a nesting doll of the same Earth where we're living on right now. They would say world within world. There's a difference between planet and world. Planet is an access point to a dimensional space, and then there's the dimensional space. So they're within that physical nesting doll of space in between there. So which one? Vesa? Okay. All right. Yes, I know. I'll shut up so you can talk. Yes. All right. Yes, everyone. I know we're limited on time, and for your grouping here, yes, my name is Vesa, and my partner's name is Elena, and we talk to him quite often. Even encountered him in person on, he thinks it's just 2 occasions, but there's actually been multiple that he has neglected to see. So I personally, we've known him for quite some time, even in forgotten periods, same as Isaac and other beings that he has channeled over the years. In this instance, the energies that he was speaking about, that all of you have been speaking about the culmination of the audit, culmination of different sound and light frequencies, the either more light or less light type of a scenario, you'll be finding that the audit that you are conducting and the rate or seeming more quickness that you are conducting it will seem like it's a train careening off of a cliff, when in fact it is actually a greater perspective opening up to you. The things that look like, you would say, destruction or a change in your own personal methodology or methods that you use in everyday life. It may seem like something is collapsing, whereas it is just expanding. This is what people are running into currently right now. I myself am here on the earth, a physical being, as is Elena, as is Isaac. We are in different frequencies. If you saw us, you would probably see us out of the corner of your eye as we walk within our world within world space that intersects your own. We have crossed into this one on multiple occasions, as he has crossed into our own, not just through bilocation. They are different frequencies. If you were to pass into ours, you would end up releasing any toxins you have within your physical human self very rapidly. It is a cleaner environment, food-wise, air-wise. And even though it would feel really good to be there, your system would go through a withdrawal if you went there, because you have different toxins. We're neither higher nor lower than yourselves, just a slightly faster moving frequency that your mind and your heart space would have to adapt to, or your energetics would have to adapt to. This is also with all the beings in ourselves that have communicated with him, have adapting him for over quite a long period of time. I know time is limited, so I can go into questions of all if you like. You can, if you want to ask me some questions, yes.
What are the energies right now most supportive of? What work should people be focused on right now for themselves?
It depends on the person. You could literally have an artist, or you could have a soldier. But what those two have in common is that they are correcting a lot of the garbage energies that are around right now. They may have vastly different methodologies, but they are both undergoing an audit of self and correcting different either past mistakes, past missions, whatnot. But they're correcting some of the darker corners of the planet. They are also helping rebalance these energies. They're helping, as you would say a soldier is going after a bad guy. Even if that particular soldier may end up being part of a narrative that's in your news or something like that, unbeknownst to that particular person, they are bringing that information to light. They're bringing an issue out that maybe your what you call bad guys are trying to exploit or use propaganda or propagandize with, but the artist may be bringing out a particular energy from somewhere else dimensionally that is also needed to swap that out and rebalance. So people always think that, oh, this side will go away. No, it is, or a warrior doesn't ascend per se. No, what is happening is it is a rebalancing of the energies. You will always have all the sides. You'll always have somebody who wants to work to do this, or somebody that wants to be an artist or be spiritual, or you'll have a warrior type. Those three classes will always be around in some form or fashion. What is going on is basically a restructuring of the energies, both within self and the environment around, to bring out what you perceive as truth and also help expand human information and human energetics into a completely different perception level.
Very good. Thank you for that. Anybody else have questions?
Well, I do. So staying on the focus of the energies on the planet right now, what are you, from your perspective, from the world that you are perceiving from us here in our world, what's your perception of the energies now in the conflict area in the Middle East? What are you seeing happening there?
Aside from the regurgitative narrative that seems to take place over and over and over there, what has actually been happening, aside from the distractive things on the news, is a repeating cycle that certain people and certain more negative allegiances, let's say, have been wanting to feed on over and over again. See, there's a major power point over there from times past, not only from Atlantean periods, but from millions of years past, where the Earth had a set of major power points in that area alone, in yours, from your Saudi Arabia all the way over to your Iraq, Iran, and all of the surrounding areas, Palestine, all of those. In those areas, this is why there is such a harsh claiming of properties. There's such a harsh mentality, because there are not only that, these are descendants of different, or was once a one singular ET group, like what he was saying about the Antumbans. The Middle Easterners, from Israeli to Palestinians, came from a single ET race that branched into a multitude of different offshoots and familial lineages, both of which are both Jew and Arab. These were one thing at one time. Both also Persian and Arabic. You had Sumerian at one time as well. All of these together were sitting on a PowerPoint that was stretched back to your ancient Mesopotamia and originally Atlantis. This is an area that is in high contestation with both ancient history and also raw energy. You would call it vortexes, but there's also portals to different dimensions, also areas that access the multiverse itself, and also ancient technologies that are there. You have different races that are vying and fighting over resources, and they are distracting your airwaves with this fight that is only being, this much is being shown, a little bit is being shown. What is under contestation is what I've just mentioned. Your Middle East is an extremely hot spot also for what you call paranormal activity, dimensional activity, and the like. This is something that is sought after for many of the races in that area. Also, your Kabbalistic factions have wanted to keep this area in a high state of negative energy to be able to, let's just say, feed the beast, But this is actually coming to a head right now. What you're seeing play out on your news and television doesn't even begin to spell out what is happening behind the scenes. One warlord after another, one fight after another, one land grab after another, one atrocity after another. This will come to pass, that this area will be seen as more of an earthly capital. It will be seen as more of a gleaming light in the darkness rather than the current fights that are going on there. But mostly what you're seeing on your news, yes, of course, there is death and destruction going on. People are getting hurt, but you're also seeing an agenda play out that other people are trying to distract with as well. So it is actually all of the above.
Thank you, Vesa. Appreciate the answer.
Yes.
Anybody else?
So I've been seeing Pilot Mount. It's a intersection point of the ley lines, kind of at the Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia corner. Calling me to go visit there. What's the significance of that point?
Interesting. Yes, there is a portal intersection point there. Most of the portals that you that are from the ancient Atlantean Lemurian period are guarded by a lot of military and base type structures. But with this, there is a portal there, but there are also you were talking about the forest people a little while ago. There is actually a large group of migration path that goes through that very intersection point. There's also a what he calls an informational nodal point there in your Akashic. You say Akashic grid, but it's more of the etheric. There was also a piece of Atlantis that was in that spot as well. That's long since not necessarily toppled, but there's still some information and technology in that area as well. But for the most part, it is a forest person, Sasquatch person, a migration path. Chances are you will more than likely get to see one of their people. I'm not promising this. They tend to be elusive, as you know, but if they want to communicate, yes. So it's really all of the above. You had other expressional existences in that area as well, as both native and as from the Atlantean Lemurian period, actually manning that particular portal. You will be going through your own footsteps as well. So it's all the above.
Thank you very much for that.
Yes.
Any other information that you want to share with us today? We appreciate you coming forward for us.
Yes, and he was wondering who was going to be on the show today. He was actually worrying, like he usually does, about who is going to come through. This is why he created the communication arcs, so that we had him do this, so that he was not playing a proverbial Rain Man role when it comes to the information. But in this, and yes, this was a joke, but Isaac may make it sound creepy, but I usually make it matter of fact. But in this instance, the energies that are happening now, you're seeing a culmination of truth where you didn't see before, like say your information about your Tartarian Empire coming out, for instance, or your Middle East, like I said before, or you're seeing a culmination of maybe some truth that you didn't know was around. As he says, Joanna likes to say, the truth is a truth to a new truth or better truth comes along. This is what you are seeing currently. Something you thought was a solid foundation is anything but. And you are actually getting your feet planted on the ground. Putting your feet planted on the ground is key, but also not judging those that have not done so or following a different path is also key. So if there are no other questions, I will detach from him at this time. So thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, I bring her through and her partner through quite often. Elena is her name. Yeah, she's what I can actually see both of them. If I'll make a brief description. Of course, blonde and dark hair, or really black hair for Elena, blonde hair for Vesa, and they are very different. Like in there, the way they present themselves. Like Elena would be more dressed like in black, like either like the typical ET jumpsuit or anything else black. Vesa is more into colors like blues, purples, things of that nature. And sometimes they wear like feathers like Native American, or they're actually originally they're a descendant lineage of a people that came from the Cassiopean star system. And some of those people there were some of the ones they were referring to as some of the origin point for some of the Persian and Middle Eastern groups. They may look like blonde Scandinavian Nordic, but they're actually closer in genetic makeup to someone from the Middle East. So they may look like they're, even though there's Viking genes that got mixed and everything, it's kind of they look like that, but their eyes are even different, where they have certain their eyes, they have like a squiggle pupil a little bit from the sun, that from that system. They're a descendant lineage, which means they are more closer in genome to ours, and we're basically cousins of each other from those two star systems. So that's who they were referring to, were some of their own cousins that were from that area. That's what some of the history was anyway. That's basically what they look like in a nutshell. And they've been around me for some time. A quick origin point: we did actually see them physically at a lecture me and Joanna and I were doing in Carefree, Arizona. I didn't even realize I was talking to them. I was standing 2 feet from them. Didn't realize who they were till I got home. And they dumbed down their looks slightly, so and changed the frequency slightly, so I wouldn't peg who they were until I was at home. They did that because they can't, per certain rules out there, always show themselves completely, or else they would have to leave. I call that the angels unaware rule, where if you're aware that they are an ET, they can operate as long as you don't know they are what they are. The moment you figure out, they're like, some ETs will smile and go away, some will run from you, some will, but per certain rules out there, they have to. They would have to leave your space at that point. So they made sure they mind whammied me enough to where I didn't figure out until I got back to the house. So that's one of the bigger incidents. I was literally standing 2 feet from them, looking them right in the eye and talking to them, and I was like, wait a minute. And they left. I went, wait a minute, and got home, and then I figured it out at that point. So they
So you actually spoke to them? You actually spoke to them?
Yes, I actually literally stood 2 feet from them physically. Yes. So they were literally standing right there at a lecture. They came in later at a lecture that we were giving in Carefree, Arizona. It was far enough off the beaten path to where they could get away with interacting with me and Joanna physically. And they left early from that as well. So, or they stayed a little bit, but they left earlier than everybody else did. And so then it didn't dawn on me until later that it was them. I also encountered Isaac physically at a Best Buy, of all places. But I didn't realize it was him until I saw him from further off. I recognized his look immediately. I started to walk up to him, and he put his hand up and went, no, he didn't want me to, because I recognized him. And I walked up to him anyway, and I noticed he had a shirt, the name tag on it had his name, Isaac, on it. So he did this to me as I walked past him, and I saw that it was actually him. So he was telling me in my head, walk away, go, so I did, and I asked him when I got home, what was that all about? And he said he was actually on an assignment to where he had to interact with other people, and I just happened to see him. So even though I'm thinking he planned that out a little more, but that's the tagline that he gave at the time. But that's happened to us on a couple of occasions. Joanna, when she was in North Carolina, noticed a being that walked up to her that I also recognized as somebody I channeled as well. And he physically came up. I was talking to her on the phone. I recognized his voice right off the bat. I said, hey, it's this person. I don't want to mention his name at the moment, but I tried. I was wondering why I didn't go with her to work that day. It's because I would have interacted with him knowing who he was, and he didn't want me to call him out. That's there was no offense, but you would have called me out and actually followed me up the street. So I wasn't going to. He wasn't going to do that. But yeah, we have encountered these beings physically from time to time. It's not often, and it's usually by surprise in some fashion, like you aren't expecting it that day, and you'll look at them and go, oh crap, you're actually this person. I wasn't expecting that. So you get those synchronicities, you get those special moments like that every now and again, which I'm grateful when they happen. But we haven't encountered that here, even though she claimed a moment ago it has happened. I just probably wasn't paying attention, but it happens from time to time.
Interesting. Well, Chris, we thank you so much for spending time with us today. Before we call it a call, how can everybody get a hold of you? Where can they find you?
Oh, yeah. Even though we have 4 different websites now, the hub for all of them is thelifting.net. That'll lead to galacticinterstellarcouncil.com for the subscription material. That will also lead to the Conspiracy Sector website and the World of Sasquatch. And there's a merch button on there for all our t-shirts, all the stuff that we do. My mother painted this painting I put on a mouse pad right here. Southwest Memory is the name of this one. And we have t-shirts. You'll see a lot of Neptune material from this area. You also see a link to our Etsy store on lifting.net as well, where I sell my orgone pieces. So it's also, I'm seeing Tanya, you put on the link. It's not a www before the link. It is just the lifting.net.
I'm just on your webpage and I just copied and pasted.
Oh, okay. Usually it's just the lifting.net, but if that's what it gave you, it'll work then.
Yeah,
But,
that's what came up when I went there. When
okay.
I clicked on your Facebook page, that's what came up.
Okay, yeah. Either one seems to work then, but most people don't put the W's in there. But yeah, that's the central hub to find all the rest of the information.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Well, you have given everybody so
Thank
much
you.
information today, such a gift. So thank you so much for spending time with us. Hopefully you'll join us just on a regular week, and we will definitely want to invite you back.
All right, thank you guys. I appreciate you having me on. This was fun.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you coming
Thank
back
you.
a second time. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, guys.
Bye-bye.
See you
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.